The sun was low in the sky when Daniel Carter rode his tired horse through the open land of the Southwest. He was a young scout, only 23 years old, and he had spent many weeks traveling alone between faraway settlements. Dust covered his clothes and boots, and his hat looked worn from long days under the strong sun. Still, his eyes were sharp, always watching the land around him. He respected nature and the people who lived close to it. That was why he was not afraid when he knew he had entered Apache land. Many travelers feared the Apache nation. They heard stories of conflict and believed the land was full of danger. But Daniel believed every person deserved respect. He did not want trouble. He only needed to cross this land to reach his next stop. He hoped that if he showed good intentions, the Apache would simply let him pass through. The land was peaceful that evening. The wind moved gently across the tall grass. In the distance, desert hills shined in warm orange light. Daniel felt calm for the first time in days. His horse slowed its steps, happy to finally breathe easier. Suddenly, a sound broke the calmness. It was sharp and full of fear. Daniel pulled the reins, stopping his horse. At first, he thought it might be an injured animal. But the sound came again, this time clearer. It was a human voice, a cry for help. Daniel's heart jumped. Without thinking, he turned his horse toward the sound and urged it to move faster. The cry echoed again, showing the direction. Daniel guided his horse through low bushes until he saw the edge of a narrow river valley. The water below rushed quickly, rough and dangerous. Then he saw her. A young woman stood near the edge of the riverbank. The ground under her feet had given way, and she was hanging on to a thin tree root that stuck out from the side of the cliff. The soil around her kept sliding bit by bit into the water below. She looked terrified but strong, refusing to let go. Daniel knew at once by her clothes and her long dark braided hair that she was Apache. Her dress was decorated with tiny shapes and colors that showed care and tradition. Still, he did not focus on that for long. Her hands were slipping. Her life was in danger. "Hold on," Daniel called out. "I'm coming." The girl looked up, shocked to see a stranger. But she did not argue. She simply tried harder to keep her grip. Daniel jumped off his horse and ran to the unsafe ground. He dropped to his stomach and reached for her hand. "Give me your hand," he said, stretching as far as he could. The girl hesitated. He could see she was unsure if she should trust him. He was an outsider, a man from a different world, yet the soil beneath her feet kept falling, and the river below looked cold and strong. She had no other choice. She reached up. Their hands met, and Daniel gripped her tightly. With steady effort, he pulled her upward. She climbed with her feet, using any roots or rocks she could reach. Finally, they both fell back onto solid ground, breathing heavily, but safe. For a few moments, they simply lay there, catching their breath. When Daniel looked at her again, he saw that she was not only safe, she was strikingly graceful. She looked young, maybe 19. Her brown eyes were strong and intelligent, but they were also watching him with caution. Daniel sat up slowly, wanting to show respect. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. She waited a moment before answering. "Yes," she said in a soft voice. "Thank you." Her English was clear, though accented. She stood up and brushed dirt from her dress. Daniel stood up as well, giving her space. He noticed she wore a small necklace with a carved stone, the kind that carried meaning in her culture. "What happened?" he asked. "My horse was frightened by a loud noise," she explained. "It ran away, and the ground here was weak." Daniel nodded. "We should get away from the edge," he said with a small smile. She gave a little nod. They stepped back safely to flat land, where Daniel's horse waited patiently. The girl's eyes studied him more carefully now. She seemed curious but still alert. "You are far from your people," she said. "So are you," he replied, trying to lighten the moment. To his relief, she almost smiled. Before he could ask her name or offer more help, a new sound cut through the quiet, the galloping of horses. Daniel looked up to see several Apache warriors riding toward them. Their faces were serious. They did not look pleased. The girl raised her chin with confidence. Daniel realized she was someone important. The warriors stopped close, surrounding them. One of them, the oldest, had sharp eyes that did not miss a single detail. The girl spoke to him in her native language, explaining what had happened. The warrior looked from her to Daniel. His eyes held suspicion, but also understanding. Another rider arrived, a tall man dressed in a way that showed respect and authority. His hair was long with a few white strands. His face carried wisdom. The girl immediately moved to his side. Daniel realized this was her father. The father's eyes softened when he saw his daughter unharmed. Then he turned to Daniel. The air felt heavy. Daniel understood that in this moment, respect mattered more than words. He slowly lowered his head in a polite gesture. "I am glad she is safe," he said calmly. The chief looked at his daughter again. She nodded, confirming that Daniel had saved her life. A change came over the warriors. Their expressions shifted from distrust to something else, something more serious. The chief stepped closer. He placed a hand on his heart, then on his daughter's shoulder. Finally, he pointed gently at Daniel. It was not a warning, it was a sign of recognition. Daniel did not fully understand the meaning, but he knew it was important. The chief spoke a few quiet words to his daughter. She looked at Daniel and translated. "My father says you must come with us," she said. "Your actions cannot be left without honor. The spirits have witnessed what you did today." Daniel felt unsure. He had only wanted to help. He never expected this. But looking at the girl's eyes, he felt he could trust her. She wasn't afraid anymore. She knew her people, especially her father, would treat Daniel fairly because of the life debt that had formed between them. "Will I be safe?" Daniel asked softly. "Yes," she said. "You saved the chief's daughter. That means something very great in our ways." The chief gave a single nod. Enough was said. Daniel took one more breath, then picked up his horse's reins. "All right," he said quietly. "I will come." As they began the ride toward the Apache village, Daniel glanced at the girl riding ahead near her father. She looked back at him once, her eyes calm yet filled with curiosity. It was a moment that told him their lives were now connected in a way he could not yet understand. The sky had turned purple with the coming night. Stars began to appear, bright and endless. Daniel felt a strange feeling in his chest, not fear, but something like destiny. He had walked into this land as a stranger. Now he was being taken into the heart of it because of a single act of kindness that had changed everything. He did not know that the Apache believed in sacred laws that guided fate and honored bravery. He did not know that saving the chief's daughter carried deep meaning, and he did not know that soon the tribe would expect something of him, something far greater than he could imagine. For now, he only followed the riders into the unknown night, his heart unsure but steady. He had saved a life, but in doing so, his own life was about to change forever. Daniel rode quietly with the Apache riders through the evening light. He could feel many eyes on him, studying every move he made. He understood their caution. He was a stranger, someone from a world that had not always treated them kindly. Yet, he hoped they also saw that he meant no harm. The chief's daughter rode near the front beside her father. She did not look back anymore. But Daniel felt a strange comfort knowing she was there. After some time, the group arrived at the Apache village hidden between large rocks and trees. Soft lights from small fires glowed warmly across the open space. Families were gathered. Children played quietly while elders sat and spoke with calm voices. When the riders entered, everyone turned to look. Daniel felt his heartbeat rise. He tried to keep his expression respectful and peaceful. The chief dismounted his horse and then helped his daughter down. She placed a hand gently on her father's arm to show she was all right. People sighed with relief when they saw her safe. Daniel could tell she was loved and important. Her rescue had clearly mattered to everyone here. The chief then motioned for Daniel to step forward. Daniel did so slowly, unsure what would happen next. The chief spoke in Apache, and the village became silent. His deep voice carried great strength. After speaking for a while, he turned to his daughter again. She translated for Daniel. "My father says the spirits saw your brave action today," she said. "He says you saved the life of his only daughter. This is something that creates a sacred bond." Daniel listened with his full attention. The words felt heavy, and yet, they were spoken with honor. "In our law," she continued, "a man who saves the chief's blood becomes tied to that life. It means protection, respect, and a connection that cannot be ignored." Daniel swallowed. He had not expected anything like this. "I only did what anyone should do," he said softly. The girl gave the smallest smile. "Not everyone chooses to risk themselves," she replied. "You did," the chief spoke again, and she translated once more. "You are welcome in our home. You will stay here as a guest of honor. But there is more you must learn and understand about what has happened." Daniel nodded, though confusion swirled in his mind. "I will respect your ways," he said. The chief seemed pleased by that answer. Women came forward to guide the chief's daughter to the family lodge so she could rest. Daniel watched her leave. Before entering, she looked back once, her eyes calm but curious. Daniel felt a small warmth inside his chest. Then an elder approached him. He was tall and thin, with a face lined from many years of wisdom. His voice was gentle when he spoke in slow English. "You have stepped into a story the earth has written for you," the elder said. "Here. Things happen for a reason." Daniel listened politely. "I hope I can learn what that reason is," he said. "You will," the elder replied. "Come, you must eat and rest." Daniel was taken to a comfortable place near a fire where a meal was prepared for him. Warm food was placed in front of him, and though he was tired, he felt grateful. The people who watched him now looked less worried and more curious. Some whispered quietly, wondering who he was and what the spirits planned for this sudden connection. Night covered the sky fully. The stars above were bright like tiny flames. The Apache believed the stars were ancestors watching over them. Daniel thought that was a beautiful belief. He lay down near the fire, his horse close by, and tried to sleep. But he could not stop thinking about what the girl had said. A sacred bond. Tied to her life. What did that truly mean? The next morning, the village woke before sunrise. Daniel heard soft singing and drums as people prepared for the day. A young boy brought him fresh water to wash and pointed him toward the chief's lodge. When Daniel arrived, the chief, his daughter, and the elder were already waiting. The girl sat quietly beside her father. When she saw Daniel, she gave a polite nod. Daniel returned the gesture. The chief spoke, and once more, the daughter translated. "There is a law in our people. A law older than any of us. When a life is saved, the spirits weave a new path. If that life is a child of the chief, the bond is even stronger. Our law says that the one who saves must stay connected to the one saved." Daniel tried to understand fully. "Connected how?" he asked gently. The girl looked slightly embarrassed but answered honestly. "It means, our spirits are tied. Our futures now must walk beside each other. It can mean partnership or something deeper. But the bond cannot be broken." Daniel's breath caught quietly. He now understood. The law did not only mean honor. It meant destiny. A shared future with her. The chief continued speaking. His daughter's cheeks turned a soft shade of red, but she translated carefully. "My father asks if you accept this bond. You have the choice. If you accept, you will live among us and learn our ways. You will become someone we trust with our lives. If you do not accept, you must leave now and never return. The spirits do not allow a half-chosen fate." Daniel felt the weight of this decision. He barely knew this girl, yet he remembered how strong and brave she looked even in fear. He remembered how her people looked at her with love and respect, and he remembered the moment when she trusted him with her life. But was he ready for such a serious bond? The elder stepped closer and placed a gentle hand over Daniel's heart. "Do not rush," he said. "Your heart knows the answer. Listen to it." Daniel took a long breath. The chief's daughter watched him with calm eyes, not forcing anything, not demanding anything. She simply waited. He finally spoke. "I do not want to disrespect what has happened. I will stay and learn your ways." A soft sound of relief came from the daughter's lips. The chief nodded with deep satisfaction. The elder smiled as if he already knew the answer before Daniel spoke. The chief placed his hand over Daniel's shoulder. It was not heavy, but it carried great meaning. The elder spoke a blessing in Apache. Several villagers nearby cheered quietly. Daniel could feel the warmth of welcome settling around him. From that day forward, Daniel began learning how the Apache lived. They taught him how to find safe water, how to read the wind, how to understand the tracks of animals. He listened to stories that explained the land and how everything was connected, people, nature, and spirits alike. The chief's daughter sometimes walked beside him during these lessons. She told him her name, Ayana. It meant eternal blossom. Daniel thought it suited her well. She was gentle but resilient, like a flower that survived the harsh desert and still stood beautiful. They spoke often, slowly learning about each other's worlds. Ayana asked about the towns Daniel had visited, the strange inventions settlers used, and what life was like far from here. Daniel asked about the tribe's traditions, their dances, and how they saw the world. Ayana always answered with great pride. Her people were not just a tribe, they were a family. Day after day, that feeling of connection grew. But Daniel knew there would still be challenges. Not everyone accepted him yet. Some warriors watched him with narrowed eyes, believing he did not belong. One young warrior in particular seemed bothered by Daniel's presence. He often kept a close, uneasy eye on him. Daniel understood the reason. He was from a different people, and history had not always been kind. Trust would take time, but Ayana believed he would prove himself. The chief believed it too. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned calm shades of gold and violet, Ayana walked with Daniel near the quiet river. The same river where their lives had met. The water sparkled softly. "Do you ever regret saving me?" she asked suddenly. Daniel looked at her with surprise. "Never," he said. "Do you regret that I did?" She shook her head. "No. I think the spirits wanted our paths to cross." She paused. "Sometimes, what feels unexpected is truly meant to happen." Daniel smiled. The moment felt peaceful, like a gentle promise from the universe that he was exactly where he needed to be. He still did not fully understand the sacred bond that had tied him to Ayana, but he knew he wanted to stay and find out what it would become. His fate was now woven with hers, and whether he fully believed in destiny or not, he could feel it growing stronger every day. And deep inside, though neither of them spoke it aloud yet, something new was beginning between them, something kind, something hopeful, something like the first spark of a future neither could escape, nor wanted to. Days passed, and Daniel began to feel the rhythm of life inside the Apache village. Every morning, the sun rose over the tall rocks and painted the land with warm light. Children ran happily, mothers worked peacefully, and warriors trained with quiet discipline. It was a world built on harmony, respect, and family ties. Daniel was honored to be part of it, even if he was still learning every rule and tradition. Ayana became the one he trusted most to guide him. She showed him the ways of her people with patience, kindness, and sometimes a playful smile. When he made simple mistakes, Daniel learned how to ride bareback on horses, how to listen to the wind to predict weather, and how to follow footprints across dry ground without losing the trail. He realized the Apache saw the land not as a place to survive, but as a friend that cared for them. The chief often watched their lessons from a distance. Daniel could see quiet pride in the man's eyes whenever Ayana taught with confidence and grace. She was not only the chief's daughter, she was one day going to be a leader of her people. Some warriors also joined Daniel in training. A few welcomed him with respect, but others still looked unsure. The one who seemed most troubled by Daniel's presence was a young warrior named Nodin. He was skilled, respected, and had grown up with Ayana. It was clear he cared deeply for her and the tribe. His eyes often followed Daniel with a mix of question and challenge. One afternoon, Daniel and Ayana practiced walking silently through the forest. Ayana moved like a shadow among the trees, her steps soft and controlled. Daniel tried to copy her, but a broken twig cracked beneath his boot. Ayana turned and gave him a light laugh. "You must listen with your whole body," she said kindly. "Not just your ears." Daniel smiled, enjoying the gentle way she taught. "I think the forest knows I'm new," he said. "It makes extra noise just for me." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "Maybe," she said with a playful tone. "Or maybe the forest is testing if you can learn." Together they sat beneath a tall tree, catching their breath. The breeze was cool and soft, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. "Ayana," Daniel asked quietly, "do your people believe the future is already written?" She looked up at the rustling leaves before answering. "We believe the spirits guide us. But we also believe we choose how to walk the path. The bond we share. It is part of that guidance." Daniel listened closely. The bond she spoke of still felt mysterious, but each day it became more real. "What if someone does not want the future the spirits give?" he asked. Ayana turned to him with gentle eyes. "Then that person must discover why the spirits gave it." Sometimes, answers come slowly. Before Daniel could reply, Nodin appeared from behind a tree. His expression was serious, and his arms were crossed over his chest. "Ayana," he said in a firm voice, "your father calls you. He wishes to speak about the upcoming gathering tonight." Ayana nodded and stood. "Thank you, Nodin," she replied politely, but Nodin did not leave. His eyes rested on Daniel with quiet challenge. "You should return too," he said to him. Daniel stood but remained calm. "I follow where I am asked to go," he said respectfully. Nodin stepped slightly closer. "Remember that you walk here only because of her kindness. Do not forget who you are, and who we are." Daniel held his gaze, steady but not confrontational. "I do not wish to replace anyone," he said. "I only wish to show respect." Nodin gave no answer. Instead, he turned and walked beside Ayana as she headed back toward the village. Daniel followed behind, feeling the air around him heavier than before. That evening, the village prepared a special gathering. The Apache celebrated the change of seasons with music, dancing, and stories. Fires were lit in a circle, sending sparks into the darkening sky. Drums began to beat in slow, steady rhythm, and women decorated their hair with feathers and beads. The night carried excitement and hope. Daniel was invited to sit near the chief, an honor he did not expect. Ayana wore a dress with bright designs that shimmered in the firelight. Her hair was braided with small flowers and colorful ribbons. She looked strong, proud, and full of life. Daniel could not look away, even when he tried. People danced in graceful movements that told stories of the earth. Daniel watched with deep appreciation. He was learning that every song, every gesture had meaning passed through generations. When the dancing paused, the chief stood. His presence alone brought silence to the gathering. He placed a hand on Ayana's shoulder and then looked toward Daniel. His voice carried through the night like distant thunder, full of wisdom and authority. Ayana translated quietly for Daniel. "The chief says that bond is not only an honor, it is responsibility. Daniel must prove his heart is true. He must show he stands with this land and these people." Daniel nodded firmly. He wanted nothing more than to earn their trust. Nodin stepped forward, speaking to the chief in their language. Though Daniel could not understand the words, he sensed that Nodin did not agree with Daniel's place in the tribe. Ayana responded calmly, her tone gentle but strong. Whatever she said made Nodin step back slightly, though Daniel could still see the tension in his eyes. The elder then stood and spoke. Ayana translated again. "Soon, Daniel will take part in a test. Not of strength, not of skills, but of spirit. The land will decide if he belongs among us." Daniel took a breath. The challenge was coming, and he would face it. Later, as the fires burned lower and music softened, Daniel walked a short distance from the celebration, to breathe in the quiet night air. The stars above glittered like silver. He felt both excitement and worry tugging inside him. Ayanna joined him after a moment, her steps soft in the grass. "You did well tonight," she said. Daniel gave a small smile. "I only tried not to embarrass myself." "You are learning fast," she answered. "And the people are beginning to see your heart." He looked at her gratefully. "Thank you for speaking for me." Ayanna looked up at the sky. "I spoke only the truth. I believe you were meant to come here." Daniel felt warmth in his chest again. He turned toward her fully. "Ayanna," he said softly, "this bond between us, does it worry you?" She paused before answering, choosing her words with care. "It surprised me," she admitted. "But I do not fear the path the spirits created. You have shown kindness and respect, and I feel at peace when you are near." Daniel felt the same peace she described, though he struggled to express it. "I am grateful for every moment here," he said. "Sometimes I feel like I have been searching for a place to belong. Maybe I was meant to find you, to find this." Ayanna's eyes softened, touched by his honesty. Their moment was pure, full of gentle hope. No words were needed for a while. They simply stood beneath the stars, two hearts slowly learning they were no longer strangers. But Daniel still sensed the road ahead would test him. Some would not accept him easily. The spirit test was coming, and the future of the bond rested on his actions. Yet he did not fear it anymore. He had Ayanna beside him. He had a purpose. He had a place he wanted to protect. As the night breeze flowed across the land and the fires glowed softly behind them, Daniel silently promised himself that he would prove his heart true. Whatever the challenge, he would face it with courage, not just for the tribe, but for Ayanna. Their lives were tied now. And with each passing day, that bond grew stronger, guided by fate, watched by the spirits, and shaped by a growing affection neither one could deny. Morning light gently touched the Apache village, painting the sky with soft colors of pink and gold. Daniel woke early, knowing that today was the day he would face the test the elders spoke of. His heart beat a little faster than usual. He had trained, learned, and listened. But this test was not about skill. It was about spirit. And the spirits, he had learned, saw everything that lived inside a person. As he stepped outside, Ayanna was already waiting near her father's lodge. Her eyes were calm but filled with care. When Daniel approached, she offered a reassuring smile. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "The test is not meant to harm you. It is meant to show your heart's truth." Daniel nodded. "I will do my best," he replied. "You already have," she said. "Today, you only show it to the spirits." Soon, the chief, the elder, and several warriors gathered. Even Nodin stood among them with a serious expression. The chief stepped forward and spoke in his strong, steady voice. Ayanna translated so Daniel understood each word. "The land will watch you today. The sky will listen. You must walk alone and search for a sign. When you return, the spirits will show if your heart is tied to our people." Daniel took a deep breath. Alone, but not lost. He believed the land had already been guiding him since the day he saved Ayanna. Before he began, the chief laid a hand on Daniel's shoulder. It was a silent blessing. Then the elder gave Daniel a small pouch of sacred herbs for protection. Ayanna stepped forward last. Her gaze was full of encouragement. "You will not be alone," she whispered. "I will be thinking of you." Her words gave him strength. And with that, Daniel started walking into the wide-open land, guided by nothing but his heart. The journey was peaceful. Birds flew overhead, and the wind carried soft whispers of nature. Daniel remembered everything the Apache taught him. Listen to the earth. Watch the sky. Trust your steps. He followed a narrow path through tall grass until the ground rose into rocky hills. Hours passed. Daniel didn't feel fear. He felt a deep connection growing stronger inside him. Every sound, every shadow seemed to welcome him. He touched the trunk of an old tree and felt comfort from its strength. He drank clear water from a small stream and thanked the land for the gift. As the sun began to lower, Daniel reached a quiet valley where the earth dipped gently. The place felt sacred. The air was calm and still. Daniel sat on a smooth stone and closed his eyes. He let the warmth of the sun settle on his skin. He thought about his past wanderer, alone, with no true home. Then he thought about Ayanna, about her laughter, her wisdom, and the way she looked at him with trust. He thought about the tribe that had accepted him, even with doubts still present. His heart spoke clearly. He wanted to stay. He wanted to belong. He wanted to build a life here, beside Ayanna, guided by the same spirits she believed in. When he opened his eyes, something caught his attention. A gentle breeze stirred the grass, making a soft path toward him, and then, a single white feather floated down from above, drifting slowly until it landed right in front of him. Daniel's heart tightened with emotion. The feather was pure and light, like a gift from the sky. He understood. This was his sign. The spirits were speaking, and he had heard them. With renewed strength, he stood and picked up the feather carefully. He placed it inside the little pouch the elder gave him. Then he turned back toward the village, his steps confident and sure. By the time Daniel returned, sunset had painted the sky in beautiful colors. The entire tribe stood outside, waiting. When they saw him come into view, a quiet murmur passed through the crowd. Ayanna stepped forward, her hands held close to her chest as she watched him with hopeful eyes. Daniel approached the chief and elder. He took the feather from the pouch and held it out with both hands. "The spirits gave me this," he said respectfully. The elder's eyes softened with deep approval. "A feather from the sky," he said. "A message of purity and peace. The spirits have accepted you." Warm smiles spread across faces in the village. Relief and joy sparkled in Ayanna's eyes, but the chief remained silent a moment longer, studying Daniel's sincerity. Finally, he spoke with a voice full of meaning, and Ayanna translated, "You came to us as a stranger. Now you return as one of us. The bond between you and my daughter is true. But one choice remains." Daniel waited, knowing this was the moment his heart had prepared for. "Do you accept this bond by your own will?" Ayanna translated, her voice gentle but filled with emotion. "Not because of a law, not because of fear, but because you choose the path the spirits created for you?" Daniel looked into Ayanna's eyes. The world around them grew quiet. His voice was steady, his heart clear. "Yes," he said, "I choose this path. I choose to stay. I choose Ayanna." Ayanna's breath caught softly. Her eyes shined like starlight. A smile bloomed across her lips, a smile full of happiness and hope. The chief nodded proudly. He placed his hands over both their shoulders. The elder lifted his staff to the sky and spoke a blessing. The tribe cheered quietly with respect and celebration. Ayanna stepped closer to Daniel, her voice hardly more than a whisper. "I am glad your heart stayed." Daniel smiled. It had nowhere else to go. The night turned into a celebration. Music filled the air as drums echoed gently. People danced around the fire with grace and joy. Children laughed and ran while elders watched with content smiles. The village felt brighter than ever before. Daniel and Ayanna sat together beneath the stars. They spoke about the future, about learning more of each other's worlds, about protecting the peace between their cultures, about walking side by side wherever the spirits led them. Daniel looked up at the endless sky and felt something warm and powerful inside him. He was no longer lost. He no longer searched for belonging. The spirits had guided him to the place where his heart finally found home. Ayanna rested her hand gently near his, and he took it, feeling the soft connection that had changed both their lives. Her presence made him feel complete, like the final piece of his story had finally been found. In that quiet moment, there was no fear, no uncertainty, no doubt, only peace. Daniel had come as a traveler, but he stayed as family. Their bond, born from a moment of courage and kindness, now lived as a promise of a future filled with love, respect, and unity. He saved the Apache chief's daughter, and the spirits saved him too. Together, They would walk the path destiny had written for them hand in hand, forever.